Afternoon, we're learning that that's a vigorous inspection which has just begun at the Cathedral International Airport as government is considering reviewing the safety protocols amidst fears that there could be a fresh wave of the COVID-19 infections as China, JoyNews is learning, is lifting travel restrictions. Health experts say it has become crucial to get vaccinated if you haven't or if you're yet to complete the process. Well, I want to bring in now Dr. Michael Owusu, a virologist, and Charles Agbeve, who's a member of the Health Committee in Parliament. Thanks for joining us, both gentlemen. But first of all, let's take a look at our COVID-19 cases. As we speak, we'll be giving you a sense of how we're doing. But the Ghana Health Service earlier today also issued a statement, which we'll be getting to very shortly. But for now, we know that we're dealing with 2 new cases. In terms of the overall total caseload, we're dealing with an active case count of 6. But over the years, ever since we started dealing with a number of cases, we've dealt with about 171,048 cases of confirmed COVID-19 cases. That was in the past. Many of us were hoping that we would have been fast out of the woods, but where we are now, there are renewed threats of that infection coming up again. In terms of the number of persons that we've lost so far to COVID-19, it's amounting to 1,461 with some 169,581 persons recovering from the infections. Well, in the wake of the surge of some cases in China, the Ghana Health Service is equally releasing a statement. We'll just bring you excerpts of that statement while I bring in my guest for you. The Ghana Health Service has just indicated that they are equally reviewing some of the measures. So let's get to that statement and tell you what it is that the Ghana Health Service has to say about what it is that they're doing. But for now, even as we speak, the officials of the service are inspecting the facilities at the Cathedral International Airport, trying to get as strategic as possible. Some countries are also considering reviewing policies against persons who are traveling to and from China. But here's the latest from the Ghana Health Service indicating that there has been a decline and sustained low levels of COVID-19 cases in Ghana over the past 3 months. However, the change in the global situation, particularly with reported increasing cases in China and other countries, as well as Ghana's relatively low vaccine coverage, poses a major threat of importation and a new wave of the COVID-19 infection into the country. The situation is therefore calling for tightening of the and reviewing of existing measures to avert further outbreaks. The Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of Health are critically monitoring the situation in consultation with the key stakeholders that are involved in this. We will shortly come out with our country-specific measures to address the current threat of COVID-19, especially with respect to importation. The statement continues to say that, quote, "We want to use the opportunity to encourage all Ghanaians who have not availed themselves for COVID-19 vaccination to do so." Those, of course, who have taken their first dose are to go for the second dose, and those who have taken their second dose are also entreated to go for a booster. So vaccination remains the best possible protection against the COVID-19 infection. So that's the indication we're getting from the Ghana Health Service. I want to bring in now Dr. Michael Owusu, who's a virologist at the Kwame University of Science and Technology. Thank you, Doc, for your time. It appears that we're not out of the woods, just as many were thinking we were earlier or late last year. You agree?
Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to all your viewers. So, well, partially, we are not yet out of the woods because COVID is like any other respiratory virus, and therefore you have to move it. It has to move from pandemic level to endemic level. So we don't have to. We wouldn't get to a point where we say that COVID is completely out. You will be having cases coming in and going down as some surges and few hotspot areas, but you are not likely to get it getting extinct as we wish to have it. So I think occasionally you will have cases come in and go out, but the extent of the cases, how large these cases come in and whether it has effect or impact on the health system is what everybody is concerned about. If you have it like any other flu, then of course it's not a problem because you just have normal flu and you can recover. But when you begin to have impact on the health system where people are struggling for ventilation and access to ICUs, that is where you want to see this as a problem. But as we speak now, the cases as observed and as reported doesn't seem to suggest that we are there yet. And I personally don't think that we are going to get there any time because of what we have seen so far concerning this particular virus.
You're the expert here. I guess that by now you, the experts, have an idea of the traits of the virus itself. Do we know the kind of variant we're dealing with, knowing that there's a mutation likely to happen, knowing that it's coming again from China?
Yeah, so between July and December, there has been subvariants of the Omicron virus circulating across the globe, in the US, in Europe, in China, and many areas. Even in Ghana, there are hotspots of COVID cases which has been happening even in December. If you check the gene bank data, you realize that we have recorded quite a number of Omicron variants, even in December, which are circulating. What we know now is we have
Dr. Michael, also, if you can hear me, it appears we're intermittently losing the point you're making. But I want to, of course, just as we, correct the faulty lines, I also want to bring to your attention some of the decisions that China is taking. They're lifting restrictions, and there are many experts who are expressing concerns about that. What should we be doing within our own country case management system? Would you call for some restrictions at this moment?
No, we're on the variants, but as I said earlier, the variants in China are not different from what we are seeing elsewhere. These are the same and similar variants. There is only one which is called the BF7, which we have not yet recorded in Ghana. But I don't think to change the picture, even if we are to have the case in Ghana. It appears that the cases we are seeing in China seem to be circulating within unvaccinated populations who are overly elderly and above 60 years of age. These are people who are having severe impact of this disease. And because of their relaxation of their COVID-19 zero policy, where they are opening up and getting people to mix up. So these are people who have been naive to the virus for a prolonged period of time, and therefore they are becoming newly exposed to the virus, and this is where this is why they are having the significant impact. So personally, I don't see that this will introduce a wave of infection in a place like Ghana, but it's too early. If the variants seem to change and we have something new happen, then of course we can make a prediction. But based on the evidence now, as we are seeing in China and many other areas, it appears the same virus circulating, and it's because of their naive population that is why they are seeing this. So I don't think we should be looking at restrictions in Ghana as we have seen before. I think that people should be encouraged to vaccinate and to be able to promote and encourage a point where people will be more immune, so that in case we have some of the BF7 enter the country, you wouldn't have significant impact like we are seeing in many other countries.
And this is where there are questions about low coverage in terms of vaccination. The Ghana Health Service admitting itself that we haven't done as much when it comes to the COVID-19 vaccination. How do we deal with that? There are even concerns as to whether or not we have enough in supply in terms of our stock for the COVID-19 vaccines.
Yes, so this is where I think this is what we are all calling for. If you really looked into the China case, for instance, you will realize that, although they say 90% of Chinese are vaccinated, this is about 1.4 billion population. So if 10% are not vaccinated, you are looking at about 140 million people who are not vaccinated and who are mostly elderly. almost the size of Nigeria and almost three times the population of Ghana. So what is telling us is that vaccines seem to work a lot, because the same variant in China is circulating in the UK, is circulating in America, but then it's not causing hospital facilities to be overwhelmed and not killing many people as we are seeing now in China. So if you have a country like Ghana where just about 50% of people are fully vaccinated, it's way, way below. Still, because many people don't feel it's important. I mean, people feel that the virus is still over, and people feel that nothing is going to happen. So just as the Ghana Assembly is calling on the population, we still have to encourage people that this virus is not yet, we are not through yet. We are relying on the population herd immunity to keep us going. So if at any point in time people are not vaccinated, they only increase the risk of exposing the vulnerable population there to something that we don't expect to see. So I think that this is something that should encourage us, many people, to go for possibly booster doses to be able to keep us going as a people.
Okay, Doc, just hold the lines for us. I want you to stay on with us briefly because there's more unfolding on this matter. Also joining us via phone is Charles Agbeve, is a member of the Health Committee in Parliament. Just before I come to you, Charles, we're learning of some new measures even at the ports. The Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority and releasing a statement a couple of hours ago. This is actually from the Ghana airports as well. So it's an update on the COVID-19 guidelines for the Kotoka International Airport, and it talks about pre-arrival and arrival processes for travelers intending to enter Ghana. So the indication we are getting is that all international passengers, including those from ECOWAS region, must first of all complete a port health declaration form with a hyperlink provided to that effect of the flight to Ghana. And then beyond that as well, all persons arriving in Ghana, citizens, residents and visitors who are fully vaccinated will be exempt, first of all, from the testing done either prior to boarding from the originating country or on arrival in Ghana, except for passengers who are originating their journeys from China. So it appears that we're finally doing some review on revelers or those moving in from China. The point C talks about passengers originating their journey from China. They would be, first of all, required to present a valid negative COVID-19 PCR test results 48 hours prior to departure from the originating country. And then in addition to that, such passengers will be required to undergo a mandatory COVID-19 testing on arrival at the Kotoka International Airport at no cost. So we need to state that clearly, that it would come at no cost at all to those who are carrying out the tests. And then there's also a point about all other passengers, traveling from other destinations, originating their journey from elsewhere other than China, say Ghanaian citizens, permanent residents, and non-Ghanaians as well. Those who are partially vaccinated or unvaccinated will be required to present a valid negative COVID-19 PCR tests, also 48 hours prior to departure, similar to what's happening to those coming in from China. And then in addition, such passengers will be required to undergo a mandatory COVID-19 test on arrival at the Kotoka International Airport. And this time round, we're doing all of this at no cost. And in addition to the above, passengers may also randomly be selected and offered a test on arrival. So it continues to talk about how non-Ghanaians traveling to Kotoka International Airport with fake or foreign vaccination certificates, they will be quarantined. They'll be returned to their point of embarkation at their own cost, and that airlines that bring passengers to the Kotoka International Airport who are not fully vaccinated or passengers originating their journeys from China without the valid negative COVID-19 PCR test results within 48 hours prior to departure, they will be paying $3,500 and I guess that will be part of their fines. But of course, getting this clear fact that Ghana is deciding to adopt this posture against China, there are concerns of a possible rift and sanctions for us, especially on countries that are deciding to go hard on China on this. I want to bring in Charles Agbeve, who's ranking on the Health Committee in Parliament. And Charles, this is where we're in a fix, of course, as to how to approach this. Many say we're violating our laws against China, which is a very, critical partner in our development. How do we approach this, knowing that there's a public health crisis looming and there's also a matter of diplomatic relations?
Very good afternoon to your viewers and listeners. First of all, I'm not a ranking. I'm a member of the health.
Apologies for that. Yes.
All right. Brother, when disease strikes, when pandemic strikes, it doesn't know diplomacy. Let me just go to the layman's street language. What does diplomacy got to do with the pandemic spreading into your country? We are not in the position to allow our economy to go into the kind of crisis we've been into. We cannot afford it. Listen, look, I'm happy and extremely happy the Ghana Health Service has been very proactive in taking this decision. I was talking to Dr. Bequin, the Public Health Director at the Ghana Health Service. He and the DG, the Director General, are at the airport today. Today, second. They are there making sure that what you just read as the new policy guidelines or directives to passengers are being implemented fully. And what I'm even more excited about is something we've all been talking about, that the Ghana Health Service should take over the testing of passengers at the Ghana airports. Gradually, they are moving towards that direction. And that is why it is free. Why did we worry ourselves with all this?
No one will be made to pay. No one will be made to pay for the testing.
Exactly. What did we put ourselves through in the past with this Frontier Health Service thing? How much have they rigged? How much have they made? If we had even allowed Ghana Health Service to do that at some subsidized fee, or even $10 or $20, do you know how much would have helped Ghana Health Service? I don't know why we put ourselves into these unnecessary troubles. Today, we are doing it free. What is warranting us to do it free? But I'm very excited that these particular proactive measures have been put in place because what is happening in China, when you monitor, almost all countries are actually asking passengers coming from China, before you enter, you must do the testing or you will quarantine. I've seen Australia pass that policy statement. I've seen the European Union, even before Sweden takes over the European Union presidency, is tabling something on that already. And so it's become an international issue. And so Ghana cannot take the chances. More so when we are not taking the vaccine. Listen, during the budget hearing, the Ministry of Health and the Ghana Health Service presented to us the number of people who have been vaccinated, those who have taken the first shot, those who have taken the 2 shots, and those who have taken the boosters. We still have a lot of vaccines lying down there. We are lucky the expiry dates of these vaccines are a bit longer. Otherwise, all these monies will have gone to waste. And so, for me, once we are taking these proactive measures at the port, the diplomacy issue, we will handle it. I understand, of course, Minister of Foreign Affairs will do the needful so that we don't overly castigate those coming from China. But we must protect our citizens. They must understand. And they must help us in that direction so that we will not have the challenges we have on our hands.
And then there's the question about the capacity of the Ghana Health Service to handle this, testing regime at the airport, knowing that Frontiers Limited was handling that for us at the peak of the pandemic. Why not go back to Frontiers? After all, you agree they were helpful in detecting some of the cases at the port.
Blessed, before Frontiers came in, was it not the same Ghana Health Service who was doing the testing? Was it not the same Ghana Health Service who used their institutions and structures to do the testing, to do the quarantine, to do a surveillance. Ghana Health Service have the capacity. All we need to do is to resource them. We have the manpower. The institution, I've forgotten the name, the one at Kumasi, Nukuchi. And in fact, in Accra, almost all the teaching hospitals and secondary tertiary hospitals are testing. University of Ghana Medical Center, Nukuchi, Kolebu, they all have the testing capacities now. They've built capacity. So all the institutions and the GAI, where we have the Ghana Infectious Disease Center, the hospital there, they have the capacity now to do the testing.
Okay, and then the last bit about $3,500 as the punitive measure for any of the airlines that will bring in, passengers who have not tested or carry out that mandatory 48-hour requirement of a negative PCR test.
I even think it's not enough. That money is not enough. You know, you need to be responsible to passengers you bring to our country. And when we put in certain directives, it must be obeyed. We shouldn't take chances. We cannot. And you know, we are in a season of flu now. You walk around, a lot of people are coughing. If you go to the hospital, 90% of the reports to our hospitals now is flu, catarrh, and this influenza. And so, if you don't take time, COVID-19 is also a flu disease. When it enters the system, it is going to be very, 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 very infectious. It is going to spread like bushfire. And so we need to protect our citizens. And that's why I personally think at the airport, the measures that have been put in place, if you are if the journey was from China, no matter how many vaccination cards you are holding, you must be tested again. I agree to that policy 100%.
All right,
and then also, we shouldn't just limit it to China, but we should put our ears on the ground and monitor and see what's happening in other countries, especially the Asian bloc, to make sure we protect our citizens.
All right, then.
It's very important for me. And entering a new year, we must be very proactive. And I want to commend DG and the Director of Public Health, Dr. Bequin, they didn't spend the New Year and the Christmas. I can guess they were monitoring what was happening, and that's why they've been able to put in these measures. And we will support them. My ranking and I believe my chairman are going to be supportive of these measures to ensure that the public is safe.
And we're grateful that you've been able... Yes, you wanted to land on the point there.
Yeah, hello?
Yeah, I'm with you, sir.
I'm also add that we plead to the citizens of this country. All these stories about vaccines are not true. They should take the vaccine. I've taken my first shot, I've taken my second shot, and I've even taken a booster. Today I was telling Dr. Bequin if I can take a second booster. He said yes. So I'm pleading with the citizens. Let's vaccinate. Those who have taken the first shot should go and take the second shot and possibly take them.
Right. And I'm grateful. Charles Agbeva is a member of the Health Committee in Parliament. And this is where I want to just bring in Dr. Michael Owusu, who would help us with the technicalities of this. And let's start off from the point Charles left us off on the need to take boosters and also, for those who have not taken the vaccines, get that opportunity to do so. How scientific is it that looking at this lapse in terms of time, you're eligible to take either a booster after more than 6 months since the last shot was taken? Just break that down for us. What's the ideal time frame for taking a booster?
Well, you know that earlier on when the AstraZeneca came in, we had some guidelines, concerning the vaccines, that you take the first dose and then within about 3 to 4 weeks, within about 3 to 4 weeks, you are able to take a booster dose to ensure that you have enough antibody buildup. But if you have looked at the real case scenario now, because of the the ununiform supply of vaccines. It's been a bit erratic because people have taken AstraZeneca, others have taken Pfizer, others have taken Moderna. So there seems not to be any pattern when it comes to taking a dose and waiting for a certain period. So, I mean, what we know for now is that there is no any health impact as far as duration of booster doses is concerned and taking multiple doses is concerned. So, I mean, whoever has taken 2 doses can at any point in time take a booster dose. It rather has a more health benefit rather than having a disadvantage. So I would want to say that wait for 2 months or wait for 3 months. But then at least after about 2 or 3 weeks, you are fine and you can go ahead and take any booster doses, I mean, as far as you are concerned. I mean, the situation in China, I mean, as you have seen, they took their doses much, much earlier. I think that it's been almost about 6 months to 1 year since they took, I mean, some for those who took their full dose. And people believe that perhaps a waning immunity could account for the surge in cases among those who are vaccinated. But like I mentioned earlier, a majority are those who are not vaccinated. And these are people ranging over 100 million people because of their large population. So, I mean, in Ghana, we were much safer taking the vaccine and being protected ourselves. And I think this is a sure way to go. It's good. What Ghana is doing is more commendable. I mean, to ensure that we put in some restrictions for those coming in and doing testing and showing evidence of test before they come in. But one thing you must know is that from the evidence of COVID, you can't stop a variant from coming to the country. You do your best to slow down the rate of infection. But then, some way, somehow, you still have these cases come. So, rather, we have to encourage more people to take the vaccine. And once you take the vaccine, you are sure that even if you have some wild variants coming, you will have some level of protection and immunity to be able to at least face this virus. And also, I think it's time for us to begin to rethink about the use of masks, especially for the elderly people and people who are living in closed circles where they are likely to be exposed. So it's a bit too early, but then when we begin to record cases and possibly have new variants coming into the country, the best sure way is to combine vaccination together with masking.
And there are questions as to whether or not that should be made mandatory.
It's too early. I don't think now we have. I mean, we don't have cases, and I was also saying that for now, the variants we are seeing in China are the same variants which are in Ghana over 6 months now. It's not urgent. It's not more concerning for us now. But then, we have to monitor to see how January and middle of February will be like. If it remains like this, then of course it means that we don't really need to worry ahead. But then, if in case we have new variants coming and cases begin to surge, then on top of the vaccination, we need to have another layer of protection, which likely will be the reintroduction of masks for us. But now I don't think it's necessary. It's a bit too early to begin to think about this.
Well, we'll see what the proactive measures, to what extent they'll be helpful at the ports, but I'm grateful, Dr. Michael, also for joining us, virologist at the Common University of Science and Technology. The Ghana National Fire Service is also in the news this afternoon. They're cautioning the public to avoid the burning of rubbish and the misuse of naked lights, such as lit candles, mosquito coils, during the dry season. The service indicated in a statement that it recorded some 226 fires within 7 days in December 2020 alone. On your screens now, you have a breakdown of the figures. And let's get to it quickly and give you a sense of what's happening. So when it comes to December 2022, that's moving us into this new year. We know that 624 cases were recorded nationwide, according to the fire service. But beyond that as well, in December 2021, the service indicates that some 567 fires were recorded nationwide. That's for just December. So this is representing about 10.1% increment in terms of the fires recorded in 2022. So that's a sense of the percentage surge. But when it comes to fires recorded between just Sunday, 25th, and the 31st December, we know that as many as 226 cases were recorded. As to what that can be attributed to, we're not clearly sure about that. We'll find out shortly. But here's a breakdown in terms of what the composition of some of these, fire outbreaks are, and you see a surge in domestic fires, largely accounting for about 91 of the cases that were recorded in just the space of 7 days, the last 7 days of December last year. And you have, of course, the minority being the institutions. It goes without saying that, of course, these institutions would have been on break, so not much activities happening in there. Lots of people moving into their homes and communities, a reason for which you'll be seeing domestic fires being on the rise. But for bushfires, we have 2.5 and 3.5 cases accounting for the commercial cases. But for vehicular and electrical cases as well, they're sharing 4.5 and 15 respectively, while, of course, crown and refuse dumps are also part of that mix with about 6 cases. I want to bring in now ACFO Timothy Asafo Fum, and ACFO, domestic fires accounting for the highest. I was just guessing there that part of the reason is because of the festivities. You have more people, staying at home, and partly that could be part of the challenge, correct?
You are partly right, but not fully right. What is happening is that every year by this time, bushfires will have taken over. Unfortunately, this time round, domestic fires are on the ascendancy, leading the pack. And so there is a question for all of us to answer as to why we allow domestic fires to be happening as much as what we are observing now.
But then the Ashanti region is topping the number of fires recorded. What's happening there?
Yes, what we have realized is that there is a lot of migration in the country. And when they migrate beyond the country and they first settle in Kumasi, and if conditions are conducive for them, they remain there. If it's not conducive, they move down to Accra. And so this explains why Kumasi is always at the top. We observe that most of these incidents occur in slum areas, and that explains why Kumasi is always on top.
So what measures are we to see in the coming days? Obviously, the festive season may be dying out, but we still have a few more days for that to end. So are we likely to see some measures from the fire service?
Yes, we have rolled out a program where we are touching base with opinion leaders within these communities that we have identified. It is our belief that if the opinion leaders speak to their people, they will listen more than they are listening to us now. Because from the measures we put in place, we didn't expect what is happening to happen. And that is why we are bringing in the opinion leaders within the communities we have identified to help drum home the message to their people.
And beyond the campaign, we know that one of the key issues that came up late last year is got to do with how some unscrupulous persons are building on fire hydrants. It's one of the challenges for the service. What are you doing in that regard as well? Perhaps liaising with the local authorities to try and check some of these fire hydrants out?
Yes, I think there is an ongoing program between stakeholders. So it is between the fire service, Ghana Water, and the district assemblies. And it is our hope that this will yield result for us to clear all unauthorized structures on these fire hydrants so that we can have access to them when they need be.
You've come under intense criticism late last year as to the response time and the fact that you're not operating as an EMT as you should be doing. What's the biggest challenge for the service now?
Now, I don't think we would deliberately delay in responding to incidents. Now, there are various factors. One is accessibility to the public to get in touch with us when emergencies occur. The simple reason is that people abuse these emergency lines, and therefore those who are really in need of our services are unable to get in touch with us. And so if we all should change our attitude by not abusing the emergency lines, those who are in need will just dial and they will get in touch with the service, and we will be there to respond to their issues for them. Then again, we also realize that in most cases, because fires normally start small, people think they can deal with the issue, and therefore they will try their hands on. It is only when it gets out of hand that they will get in touch with us, by which time a lot of things might have been destroyed before we get to the incident scene, and they will in turn blame us. I always say that we are not magicians. You must report an incident to us before we know that there is an incident somewhere for us to respond. And so the moment you observe an incident, quickly call the fire service, and we'll be there to support you and to deal with the situation for you. We don't expect that you try your hands on when you fail before you call us. Even when you can control the situation, it is important that you call us, so that in case you are unable to deal with the situation, we'll be there on time to help. Then again, whether we get there and you have been able to sort out yourself or not, it is incumbent on us to investigate the situation so that we can incorporate that into our education for others not to go through the same process to bring about fire incidents in their homes. And so at times too, traffic situation, you see the siren on, and drivers feel reluctant to pave way for the fire tenders to pass. And so when it happens like that, we cannot just use our car to push them aside. No, we have to wait us, and when they give us the way, we'll also move.
Personal responsibility will obviously count at this moment. And there's some safety tips the fire service is giving out for, the public to be, taking notice of, even as we move through this period.
Yes. Within this particular point in time, until we get into the rainy season, those of us who weed around our homes and want to burn, this is not the time to start any burning, because the moment you start burning, the tendency of the wind to blow the embers away is high. Now, when the embers are blown, wherever they land, they will start another fire. So it is incumbent on us not to do any burning at this particular point in time, whether by clearing your home and burning the rubbish or burning your farmland. It is not ideal at this particular point in time to do so. Then those of us using electricity, one of the problems we have observed is that people put on their electrical gadgets and then tend to jubilate or going out to enjoy it. By the time they come back, disaster has started. And so let us also be careful. If you want to step out, all electrical equipment that are not meant to be on, for example, the fan, the TV, etc., etc. These equipments are supposed to be turned off and unplugged before you step out. Again, those of us using gas to cook, it is ideal that the cylinder is placed outside so that cooking can go on. If you are not in the position to do that, then ensure that there is adequate ventilation in the kitchen for your cooking to be done, so that in case there should be leakage, because you have adequate ventilation, it will have a minimal impact. So these are a few things that I want the public to observe.
And we'll definitely be watching the space. We're grateful, ACA for Asafo Efom, for joining us here on The Pulse. And we're grateful that you're able to provide us some updates from your quarters. But we're taking and you're welcome back to The Pulse. The National Cathedral Secretariat is taking on critics who have accused them of not accounting for for the entire funds paid to them by government. The Secretariat says government has paid a total of some 339 million cedis towards the construction of the project. The amounts they indicate includes an amount of 113 million cedis, which was paid directly to the consultant, HI and Associates, a consultancy firm, and some 225 million cedis was also paid directly to the Secretariat. It's contained in the status reports that was presented by the National Cathedral Secretariat trustees delivered at the Bible Reading Marathon Thanksgiving ongoing at the project site. Dr. Paul Opoku-Mensah is the Executive Director for the Secretariat.
Mr. President, for the record, I want to state categorically that we've accounted for all the monies from the state to the National Cathedral project. And this accounting has been submitted to Parliament. For purposes of clarity, I want to report a verbatim memo I sent on this issue dated 19th January 2022 and addressed to the Clerk of Parliament. The indication was that the government had given us 339 and we could account for 225, leaving 114 million missing. As I indicated, and here I quote what I wrote to the clerk. As we indicated to the committee on Thursday, December 15, 2022, the total amount paid by the government of Ghana to the National Cathedral project is 339 million cedis. This total is made up of the following. 1, amount paid directly to the National Cathedral Secretariat is 225 million. And the amount paid directly to the consultants, Ajay Associates and Design Team, is 113,040,5467. So it's literally 113,114 million. The two payments total 339,003,06486. So first, there is and there are no missing funds that could not be accounted for. Second, the detailed accounting for these funds was provided to Parliament on December 15, 2022 by the Secretariat. In the case of the accounting from the Secretariat, this involved, among others, total payments made to the contractor and total payments made to the Bible Museum and Biblical Gardens Design Team. This team includes leading firms like Cubic Malt, BPRD, Cortina, JMC, who between them have done some of the major works, including African American Museum, Bible Museum, and major art and presidential museums globally. In the case of the amount paid to the consultants, this included a list of all the companies in the consultants team. I read, for impact, for emphasis, I read the list of these companies to the Parliamentary Subcommittee on Trade, Industry, and Tourism on December 15, 2022. We did this because there was this assertion that we had paid the architects. I wanted to inform them with the documentation that the architect doesn't have a contract. So what exists is a contract for consultant services, almost about 30 services that were all provided to Parliament, with about 15 international and Ghanaian companies who are the recipient of that amount. Sir David Ajay does not have a contract. There's no contract for an architect. There's a contract for consultancy services with all this company. While a project of this nature will always have its discontents, we are nonetheless concerned about the misrepresentations, particularly when it comes from members of Parliament. For instance, the continuous misrepresentation of the contract to the consultants is worrying, as none of the amounts bandied around comes anywhere near the contract amount. Rather than 34%, that was said, we said we had paid the architect 34%. Actually, the contract figure is 12.5%. When the Ministry of Works and Housing allows for 16.5%. And the 12.5% will not change irrespective of what happens to the total cost. But more critically, the contract, as I said, is not for an architect, but for a set of consultant services involving 15 international and Ghanaian firms, of which Sir David Ajay Associates are lead consultants. Mr. President, we're grateful for the force of your conviction and the consistency of your support for the project. As I will be explaining in my update, we are at a stage where we are very confident that, God helping us to quickly raise the needed funds, we will be able to complete this project in time for you to bequeath it to the Ghanaian people before you leave office.
Well, so that's the updates there. Let's broaden the conversation here on the Pulse. Joining us via Zoom now is the Vice President of the Trinity Theological Seminary, Very Reverend Professor Kwabena Asamoah Jadu. Thank you, sir, for your time. The trustees there, first of all, worried about some of the perceptions out there that they are embezzling funds. How do we instill confidence in such a project which is being described as of national importance?
Well, thank you. Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to our listeners. I think the responsibility of instilling confidence in the public as far as the National Cathedral is concerned lies in two areas. First, with those who conceived the project, which is the government, and then second, those who are overseeing the execution of the project. As you know, we live in a world of multiplicity of media sources, so it's very easy for misinformation to go around very, very quickly. So if we are talking about confidence, I think the onus lies on these two groups of people, government and those who are executing the project, to instill confidence.
At least we're getting a sense of the figures now. 122 million paid to Ajayi and Associates, and then we're learning of 225 million cedis paid now to the trust fund. And yet what we see on the grounds is nothing to write home about. Is this the time to take a second consideration on the possibility of halting the project entirely?
Well, I'm a pastor.
I see how difficult that is. Yeah, the bias, right?
Yes. So I don't have, if you like, the kind of expertise that has to do with construction. And because of that, I wouldn't like to join the masses who make their pronouncements and decisions from information that they get from the media. Usually, before I make my mind known on an issue, I want to see empirical evidence. I want to see the facts. Because, you see, we live in a world in which media sources can damage reputation. And reputation, once damaged, is very, very difficult to recover. So the mere fact that there is a section of the public saying that the program and the project should be halted does not necessarily mean that they have all the facts. And I wouldn't like to join that. That group of people who are calling for the project to be halted.
And I just want to quote the trustee, the chief executive of the trust fund there, talking about more worrying being members of parliament. That's the category he has a challenge with. Some say the MPs are simply playing their supervisory role, ensuring that there's the judicious use of state funds.
Yes, but the parliament is not made up of just one party. It's made up of two parties. Do we have figures regarding any vote taken on the floor of parliament that suggests that a majority of parliamentarians are against the project? One. Two, those who are against the project, what is the concrete evidence that they have provided? First, they talk of malfeasance. I want to see a publication of the figures to show that money has been paid to people who were not supposed to receive it, or there have been over-invoicing or under-invoicing or whatever. Because, as I said earlier on, it is very easy for anybody to take a microphone, appear on a radio station, appear on TV, and castigate a project when they don't have the facts and the figures. And I expect that if somebody offers himself for parliamentary service and is in parliament, the person will not argue like the ordinary person in the street who does not have information. I expect parliamentarians to argue based on facts and figures and not just on sentiments.
What we're seeing now is the national cathedral, which is supposed to be building national coherence, bringing some sort of tendencies of division, if I could put it that way. Just last week here on the Pulse, last year I should say, and a group equally emerged asking for the establishment of a national shrine. The believers were radicalizing some groups in the country, religious groups especially, to take extreme decisions, to be at the very extreme of the sides of the coin. I mean, what's your take on that fear that a continuous funding, government funding for this project could be detrimental to national coherence?
Well, let me begin from the fact that there are people who are opposing it. And I'd like to challenge all of us to show me one project in this country that has not been opposed. Even Jubilee House. I heard a politician in the media saying that it was not necessary and that once he comes to power, they will turn it into a hospital and so on. Every single project that is conceived by any government, there is opposition against it. How do we expect this country to develop? Even roads. I have heard politicians say we don't eat roads, even roads. So I don't like to join the cacophony of voices that simply oppose things for opposition's sake. If people think that they need a national shrine, let them ask for it. That's their right. But this particular government, led by a particular individual, has decided that it would give this country a national cathedral.
But Prof, let me be hypothetical here. What would be your reaction? And apologies for cutting through. What would be your reaction if the president decides now to equally give seed funding for the construction of a national shrine? In a time of austerity, of course.
We have always been in austerity. Let us get to the bridge of national shrine and let's cross it. Unlike, say, Catholicism or Protestantism, we don't have a single voice for African traditional religion. We simply don't have it. So let's get to that bridge and cross it. My point is that let's focus the argument on the merits and demerits of the cathedral. We live in this country, and people spend money and resources to go on tourism, to pay money in Israel. Since the Washington Bible Museum opened, there have been many people traveling across the world to visit that place, and they come with glorious tributes. As far as I have come to understand it, the National Cathedral is not simply a place of worship. I have been consulted on the academic side of the cathedral, where we are going to have a project that deals with the history of religion in this country, and where we are going to have artifacts belonging to missionaries stored. That is an academic project that we can all benefit from. So my point is, if the people in charge of the project have not sold it properly to the public, that's another matter. But don't let us throw the baby away with the bath water. Let's ask ourselves, is there anything, at least for tourism purposes, that we can secure from building this cathedral? If yes, then let's go ahead. If no, let's drop it.
The church...
Go ahead.
The church appears to even be divided on this matter. I'm not too familiar with the exact scriptures, but some clergymen referring to the requirements of scriptures when it comes to the construction of a national cathedral. They talk about the fact that it must be done with integrity. You've heard some of these scriptures being referred to, not just by the clergymen, even by some members of parliament. You're a theologian as well, so you understand the scriptures. What does the Bible say? What does that holy book say about the construction of cathedrals such as this project?
Well, I'm not aware that there's anything called a national cathedral in the Bible.
In the Bible, right? Okay.
What I'm aware of is that David attempted to construct a temple for God. And eventually he couldn't do it. So his son Solomon was put in charge of the project. But interestingly, David had been able to mobilize the resources that were needed for the project. And the resources were mobilized from the people, those who were interested in contributing to it. And David himself was so amazed that he praised and thanked God that out of their free will, people had contributed to the project. So that's why I say that let those who are in charge of the project market it properly and let people who believe in it contribute to it. I have not heard that anybody is being forced to contribute to it. But my point is that I need those who are criticizing it to provide me concrete proof that there has been malfeasance. And some of us will be the first people to challenge the government on its record. But simply to come in the media and say that the thing is not good and then malfeasance and so on, I don't think parliamentarians should argue like that.
Prof, the
Yes,
issue obviously about public opinion, it may come up when this project is not complete before the exit of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He says it's his personal pledge to God and that he intends to fulfill that, just as we're learning from the trustees, before he leaves office. In the unlikely event where we have this project transcending this government, would you be surprised, for instance, if the NDC, which is one of the alternative parties that could come into power, cancel or halt the National Cathedral project if they indeed become victorious in the 2024 elections?
Well, as you said, this is a hypothetical question you are asking. But my point is, let's, for the purposes of argument, say that the project is ill-conceived. If the project gets to a certain level, what will be the wisdom in pulling it down at a certain cost? So we get to a point where going forward becomes as difficult as going backwards. When we get to that junction, we have to weigh the options, opportunity cost, to see which is more costly, whether to execute it or not to execute it. And then let's make a decision. But I think that the government owes Ghanaians some explanation, some detailing of how they intend to complete this project before they leave office, if that is the pledge. But as I keep saying,
but if they are not able to do so, and that's a possibility because it's a project, it may be affected by so many factors. Successive governments, that's a critical question that may face the next leader of our country. If the next leader of our country decides to halt the project, I mean, that would equally affect the project. So what should we be doing? Should we be looking at laws? Would you be surprised if the next president decides to halt the project?
Let me also give you the other scenario. The other scenario is when the project is completed and it starts attracting tourists and money is being raised from tourism. Will the new government reject it or not? Would they say we don't like the money? So my point is, it depends on where the project would have reached. If it's still at its nascent stage and the new government decides that I'm not interested, so be it. But this attitude of kicking against every single project because it is not our government that conceived it, I think must stop. Otherwise, this country will not develop. We don't have to solve all our problems before we undertake religious. Otherwise, we'll not do anything. There are people whose children are still in school, they are still paying fees. Then they buy a car because maybe the car helps you to go to work early and manage your life and so on. So I think that the government owes us a responsibility to give us all the detail so that those who are not in favor of it can argue based on facts and figures. And in any case, I don't expect that throughout this country, every single Christian will support it. But those who don't support it should not behave as if they are the only people whose voices must be heard. There are other people who support it, and I think that is how we should look at it.
Okay, and just before we wrap up the conversation, we can't go without saying Happy New Year, just as you were indicating to us earlier. But the year started off with a lot of preachers telling us about the outlook, what the scripture says, what prophecy is saying, what it is that, the Lord has revealed to them. You know the scriptures quite well. You study that. That's what you do. What's your take on prophecies and what it is that we've seen, the trend, 31st night crossovers, with so many preachers divided on what the year holds for us? Some good tidings, some of the opinion that, well, there's some sort of a doom ahead of us in terms of, the development of our country. What's your take, and what does the Bible really say about that?
Well, prophecy itself is biblical, and there are people who are gifted in the area of the prophetic. But as I said on your platform a number of years ago, some Ghanaian preachers have turned prophecy into a nuisance. Just say things they know nothing about. I'm a very, very optimistic Christian, and I believe that God wants us to do well as a country. He wants us to do well as individuals. Those who are prophesying doom must also appreciate the fact that when doom comes, we are all part of it. So rather than prophesy doom, I would say God has given us a new year. Let's seize the privileges and opportunities that it offers, put all hands on deck, and make sure that we develop and flourish together.
But you've just told us it's a gift. They are the ones in the realm. For instance, we've not been to Umofia before, but someone has been there. So, you understand what I mean. This is a matter of the gifts. Well, we're not there with them.
But you must also know that the same Bible that authenticates prophecy, when you read Jeremiah 23, there are false prophets, people who prophesy according to the direction of their stomach. Depend on what they want from people, they tell them what people want to hear. So there are prophets around who are con men. I don't believe them. But there are also very genuine prophets through whom God speaks. And if what is coming is not good, God has the ability to help us to correct it. After all, God reveals in order to redeem. So I'm very hopeful. That in spite of the prophecies of doom, this country will do well to God's glory.
The question as to whether or not we're treating some of these preachers fairly, of course, the Ghana Police Service releasing a statement on the eve of that crossover, service, warning and trying as much as possible to ask preachers not to veer off into the communication of doomsday prophecy and some of these activities. So don't you feel that the Ghana Police Service is unfairly targeting some of these preachers?
Now, I think they are doing it against a certain backdrop. In the past, as I said, we have had prophetic figures who have simply become a nuisance. And there are people who mention names, which people dead. Just about 3 years ago, there's a so-called prophet in this country who declared death on 2 political figures who are members of my own congregation, causing fear and panic in families. And I think the police did the right thing by warning against such prophecies. And those people I'm talking about are still alive. So if religion becomes a nuisance, then those in charge of law and order have every right to caution. They didn't arrest anybody, they only cautioned. And if people believe that they are prophecies of God, let them go ahead, and the future will determine whether they are authentic.
But the argument we constantly hear from them is that it's scriptural. It's within the remits of the scripture.
Their arguments, the fact that they argue from scriptures doesn't make it true. People can take the Bible and use it for self-serving purposes. So I don't believe it simply because somebody is quoting scripture.
We've seen in countries such as Rwanda, and that will be my final question to you, countries such as Rwanda making, legal and legislation reforms, trying as much as possible to sanitize the Christian religion and its practice in that country. But here in Ghana, there's that push for us to adopt such an approach. What's your take on passing laws that may regulate prophecies?
Well, I have been to Rwanda a few times, and I must say that at least in Kigali, I was impressed with some of the things I saw. For example, I did not see any walls littered with prophetic posters. I did not see any huge billboards. The cities look clean and so on. So I think the government did that in order to regulate an area that was simply going out of control. A certain amount of regulation is needed in every human society. And it is precisely because we refuse to be regulated. That's why we have the chaos that we have. So this must be a warning to religious leaders that if we don't regulate ourselves and our activities, we may force the hand of the government, because religion can be exploited. Religion is good. It helps us to connect and have a sense of supernatural. It has a moral dimension. It has a constructive dimension. But unregulated religion can also cause chaos. And I think that if we don't self-regulate, then nobody should complain when the government descends on us with regulation in order to protect the vulnerable of society.
And I'm grateful, Professor Jidu, that you've been able to spend some time with us here on The Pulse, and Happy New Year as well. While still on the National Cathedral, President Akufo-Addo has donated some 100,000 cedis to the continuation of that project. Speaking at the event, the President reiterated his conviction on the building of a national cathedral.
Ladies and gentlemen, the reasons for my decision to mobilize support for the construction of the National Cathedral remain unchanged. Firstly, since gaining our freedom and independence from the British colonial power on 6 March 1957, Ghana has so far been spared civil war, famine, and epidemics. We are certainly no better than the other nations in our neighborhood who have been confronted with these challenges. But I believe that it is by the grace of God that we have been prepared, preserved, and sustained. And the construction of the National Cathedral is an act of thanksgiving to the Almighty for his blessings, favor, grace, and mercies on our nation. Secondly, at least 71% of the Ghanaian people adhere to the Christian religion. Grouped under the various persuasions of the Christian faith, the interdenominational National Cathedral will help unify the Christian community and thereby help promote national unity and social cohesion. The Supreme Court, the apex court of the Republic, unanimously rejecting a challenge to the constitutionality of the cathedral project, laid particular emphasis on this point in granting approval for the development of this project. Thirdly, on a personal note, I made a pledge to Almighty God that if he was gracious enough to grant my party, the New Patriotic Party, and I victory in the 2016 election after 2 unsuccessful attempts, I will help build the cathedral to his glory and honor. And I'm determined, with your support, to redeem this pledge. As I have said before, the National Cathedral will not just be another national monument adorning the skyline of Accra. It will be the rallying point for the entire Christian community to come together and worship, to pray, and to promote deep conversations on the role of faith in building Mother Ghana. It will house a Bible museum, and it will be an iconic infrastructure for national conversations and international pilgrimage and tourism. I'm grateful for the presence of our kith and kin, our brother from the diaspora, who has joined us on this occasion. It will be a monument to religious liberty, and its construction deserves the full support of the nation. Just as God prospered Nehemiah to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, I am prayerful that he will prosper us and make us succeed in our endeavor. I'm therefore committed to working with the Board of Trustees to ensure the completion of this project to the glory of God and the edification of our nation and all our people. And I end by making a donation of 100,000 cedis to the project.
Let's take you to the Volta Regional, a simple bridge connecting two small towns in the Anglok constituency in that part of the country has been in a deplorable state for years. Efforts by community members with the aid of their MP to fix the bridge has stopped on several occasions by authorities, and the community say they need urgent help to fix it before more people lose their lives trying to use the bridge. Kweku Asante visited the community and now reports.
A 4-year-old girl returning from school lost her dear life due to the dilapidated nature of this bridge, and residents are warning more people could die if this is not fixed. This bridge, constructed mainly with metal plates as the bed, has become rusty and is now riddled with holes in many parts. Users have had to navigate cautiously. Constructed close to 30 years ago, this bridge is overdue for a major renovation, but has not happened. Assemblyman for the Atiteti electoral area, Raphael Kwejo Agbenavo, says the bridge is now a death trap.
Very, very terrible. It's not just bad, it's a death trap. So we decided to do our own thing as a community. So we bought some chipping sand for the project. But lo and behold, the railway came in and said that we shouldn't touch the bridge. They came to change some plates at the cost of the MP, because MP have to pay 4,000 for them to convey 20 of these plates from Kokratumi to come and repair the severe damaged ones. And recently, 3 weeks ago, a young girl returning from a school have to fall on this bridge because she is trying to dodge these big holes on the bridge. So at the process, he fall through this side of the bridge and fall into this water. And that's the end of the small girl returning from school. What crime have this young girl committed? If duty bearers could have allowed us to do our concrete overlay, could have account to this situation.
Other users, particularly motor riders, which is the main source of transportation in the area, are worried if this is not fixed immediately, more people could lose their lives.
This thing there is what no good. It make way people they for this thing inside the dam. So it no good for you for the.
So when you're on it, you are afraid that maybe you yourself you could fall in or.
Yeah, I'm afraid. So I go for the inside.
Sometimes when you are working on it, it seems you'll be feeling as if you fall inside. So our hope is that they should come and redo it for us, because this thing can cause harm to us. Yeah, so if they could try and do something about it to us, we will like it. Yeah, because sometimes if you don't take time, you can fall inside. Even when you are on motor, you are scared because of the way these places are harmful to us. Yeah.
MP for Anglok constituency, Richard Kwame Sefe, who sponsored a partial renovation a few years ago, is frustrated that despite the community's effort to fix this, some state authorities are hampering these efforts.
Me, personally, I think I have done my part as the leader, for that matter, the people's representative of the area. I've written to the Minister of Highways, and we went very far to the extent that some of the platings that you see here replaced were paid by my good self, and we were about to replicate something that happened around Galosota. The same situation. After the contractors are about to leave, they replace the metals with the concrete, and it made the job very solid. But whatever it is, we have to prevent human life loss. So we are on it, and I pray if government could intervene, because this is nothing. They will only need proper aluminium to be laid on this.
This community is reeling under the death of a 4-year-old girl who tried to navigate these challenges on this bridge. She fell to her death. The MC, the district assembly, the MP, the assemblymen, they are asking for help from government to be able to fix this. But they themselves are trying to do something on their own. Just behind me, we have chippings of stones and sand ready to lay some concrete on this bridge to fix it. But they had faced some challenges with government asking them to go through some formal procedures and frustrating the process in the long run. They cannot wait any longer. They want to prevent more deaths from happening. Reporting from the Volta region, Kweku Asante, JoyNews.
Interior Minister Ambrose Derry has warned non-conformists and perpetrators of violence in the Boko conflict to put an end to their activities or be made to face the full rigors of the law. In an interview with JoyNews, the minister indicated the Boko conflict, Boko actually is a critical part of the country, particularly with its proximity to neighboring Burkina Faso. JoyNews' Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from Kokoligo.
It's been the practice of Interior Minister Ambrose Derry since the days of yore and before he joined public service, holding New Year party for members of his clan at Kokolugu and its surrounding communities. Over the years, the patronage has expanded and is now held for all Nandam constituents and the region at large. It gives the revelers the opportunity to meet with duty bearers, especially Ambrose Derry, who also doubles as the member of parliament of the area, to make merry and also reflect on the successes and challenges of the previous year with a view to finding solutions to them.
We would continue to pursue the development agenda. One of them being employment. From independence to 2017, the public records show that 600,000 people were employed under Nana Dunda Akufo-Addo. That's far. We've employed 400,000 more. But we are the first to admit that unemployment remains a challenge. We are going to do our best. Yes, going into the new year, there's a ban on public and civil service recruitment. But I believe, you know, that where I speak of is neither civil service nor public service. You see road infrastructure, we need to do more. There are roads that deserve attention. It's all over the country. And it looks like now roads is the hottest demand that we have. And we are going to make sure that we work to make sure that the Upper West is not left.
Touching on the renewed Boko conflict, which has claimed over a dozen lives, he disclosed that though the security agencies have upped the ante, but that is only the first step, assuring the people that they will work to ensure that peace is returned to the area.
Into the new year, as we have got into new year, take more serious steps and strategies to make sure that Boko returns to peace, that it deserves, that state institutions can operate, hospitals, schools can continue to operate, and our children continue to go to school. We have taken note, we have increased numbers as a transitional measure, but we are going to come up with strategies that you would soon see would greatly improve, and we get back to more peaceful times.
Ambrose Derry, however, has this warning for the hawkish and nonconformists in Boko.
Show all those who want to be violent and non-conformist and not law-abiding, that we shall meet them squarely and let the law take its course. We are not going to allow a few people to take the peace and security of Boko and therefore Ghana at large for granted. We would come after them, and we assure them that they can run, but they cannot hide. Boko is a very important part of Ghana, especially that it shares border with Burkina Faso and Togo. And therefore, we would want that it is peaceful and secure to enable us fight off or ward off the extremists who want to migrate southwards.
The Interior Minister is hopeful that despite 2023 forecasted to be a difficult year, the government with support from the citizenry will sail through.
So for me, the new year is a year that we look up to. We are told that the world forecast is that it will be a difficult year. We believe the battle is still the Lord's. And government is going to work hard. And with the cooperation of Ghanaians, we will come out. And our president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, better than our neighbors and the world at large. For now, all I can say is, I wish you again a happy new year and God bless us all.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafik Salam, Kokolibu.
The regional chairperson of the New Patriotic Party has advised Ghanaians to be on guard. As he says, the country's existing peace and tranquility must be guarded jealously. McAfee Kofi Wanya is concerned about the manner in which a section of the public, including the media, sometimes make unhealthy pronouncements which have the tendency to undermine the peace of the country. He was speaking at a press soiree in the Volta Regional Capital Hall.
The press soiree was attended by selected members of the Inky fraternity and leadership of the New Patriotic Party. Addressing the gathering, the Volta Regional Chairman of the NPP, McAfee Kofi Wanya, stressed the need to protect the country's peace and stability.
Lately, people, including some section of the media, have made statements and pronouncements that sought to undermine the peace and stability of our dear nation. Those who do not know the past history of this country can toy with such dangerous ideas. There is no known better alternative to the system we have today. In the event of any upheaval, the press will be casualty. So let's hold dear our peace and tranquility. The press has a major role to play in the preservation of our collective security and stability.
He also outlined the progress made on the Eastern Corridor Road, Sogah Dual Carriage Road, UHAS Campus Inner Roads, and Sogah UHAS Tetreno Bypass Road project, among others, as some major achievements of the Akufo-Addo-led government in his jurisdiction.
Contrary to what the opposition and critics would want us to believe, Ghana has moved on a great deal. The Southern Sector Water System Extension project are ongoing and many others. This is the economy some propagandists want us to believe is in shambles. All of the above we have done without any support from the IMF yet. In our subsequent interaction with you, we shall provide details, project specifics, and government intervention to buttress our points and support our claim and justify and the justification to break the 8 in 2024.
Yeah. Fred Kwame Ansari, JoyNews.
In the Central Region, health officials are advising residents of the region to reduce the intake of oily foods and excessive alcohol in order to control their blood pressure. The caution follows a health screening exercise which reveals that 3 out of 4 people that were screened had abnormal blood pressure. Speaking at the health screening exercise, Executive Director of the Enyidadumba Foundation, Dr. Madison Adenusa, implored on residents to check what they eat in order to stay healthy. There's more in the following report.
The health officials who are part of the non-governmental organization Enyidadumba Foundation have been screening residents in the Gomoa-Esukuma area. The free outreach program in Gomoa-Esukuma to educate community members on their health is part of several health screening exercises the organization has been putting up to help in the physical awareness of residents. The executive director of Enyidadumba Foundation, Dr. Madison Adonisa, the health screening revealed blood pressure-related risk, which sparks a lot of concerns.
One thing that came up or that stood out in today's outreach is this, that a high proportion, about 3 out of 4 adults in this community have abnormal BPs. They have high BPs. It is striking. And so we had to educate them on 1, diet, 2, the need to be checking their BPs frequently, and the need to stick to their BP medications or treatments. Because if they do not do that, they stand the risk of developing complications of hypertension, chief among which is stroke, a very debilitating condition for one to have. They could also have heart failure, and they could also have chronic kidney disease. So this is a point that we have reiterated to the district health administration and also the local authorities in the village here, for them to be harping on every now and then, so that they will take their diet seriously. They will not eat so much salt. They will not put so much additives that I do not want to mention the names for obvious reasons to their food. And they should eat natural food, food that has not been highly processed, that has not been so canned, or food that has not been canned. They are in a village, they are farmers, so they have access to the food that is fresh from the farm. We have encouraged them to eat a lot of those fruits, and those fruits. We have also encouraged them not to patronize so much of the so-called food for the rich, the fried rices and all that. That has a lot of additives, that have a lot of salt in them.
Dr. Adenusa, who is also a medical officer, reviewed other health checks done by the team.
We also screened the eyes of about 200 adults and distributed about 20 free spectacles to those who needed them. We referred those who needed further care, those who had cataracts, those who had glaucoma, we referred them to higher centers for further care.
Beneficiaries of the screening exercise commended the foundation, expressing their appreciation for the screening and encouraged them to keep up their good work. Abdallah Osman's reports for JoyNews.
And of course, it's a new year. Many of you have plans. Some say you want a new car, a new job, probably a woman. That's all part of your new year resolution. We all are stepping into 2023 with our own expectations. But let's bring you this report by my colleague Maxwell Agogba, capturing how you shared the last moments of 2022 and resolutions going into this new year.
2023 is here, and this is our patrons here at the Independence Square. Welcome the new year with marvelous and spectacular fireworks and drumming. The people here cannot hold back their joy and excitement. Hi, what's your name?
I'm John Michael.
John Michael, tell me, how excited are you?
Well, it's really nice. Like, this is one of the best fireworks that's been shown over the last couple of years. Okay. This is good, really good. For 2023, I'm just going to live my life to the fullest. Like I keep saying, Ugu City Vie, get out, live life. Like, don't do tomorrow what can be done today. Yeah. So we're living life to the fullest, same as always.
You only live once. You only live
once, true.
Yeah. Great.
The guy wants to.
A 2021 report by the Ghana Tourism Authority noted that over 600,000 tourists were in Ghana in the year 2021, with $800 million of revenue raked in by government. Of course, the peak of that happened in December, and that is happening again in December 2022, when we had a lot of people from the diaspora visiting Ghana. Many of them are here at the Independence Square having fun at the Countdown Africa program happening here at the Independence Square. They've been sharing with us the New Year resolution and their expectations for the year 2023.
Happy New Year from Ghana! We love Ghana!
You having a good time?
A great time!
Where did you come from?
Miami!
Miami!
Mexico!
Mexico! Oh! Atlanta, okay.
Atlanta.
Oh, okay. That's okay. That's okay. That's fine. That's okay. Right?
New York, but I just want to give a shout out to all my Dominican people all over the world. Listen, we got
Dominicans in the house. Dominicans in the house.
So, Dominicanas in Ghana, okay? Dominicanas in Ghana. And let me tell you something. Dominicanas in Ghana. Okay? One more thing. It's about time our Latin people come to Africa to learn about your African roots, okay?
Everybody, let's go. I like that. I like that. Any New Year resolutions you want to share with us? New Year resolution?
Not a resolution, but an intention, harmony, and manifestation in 2023.
More love, more respect, more happiness.
Okay, I see that. People. Okay, let's see. Okay. Hi. What's your name?
Chris.
Chris. L. Where are you from?
New York. We're in
New York.
Queens in the house.
New York in the house.
Yes, sir.
Are you Brooklyn? Are you loving it here?
Yeah, we're loving it in Ghana, for real. Loving it in Ghana.
Having a good time?
Great time, yeah. Yeah, blast, man. Having a blast, man. It's probably my third time coming down. First time in Ghana.
First time in Ghana?
Whoa! Yeah, love it, love it. I'm coming back next year and the year after that, and the year after that, every year. Hey, yes, sir. First time in Accra, man. I've been in Africa plenty of times, but it's my first time in Ghana, though. I'm coming back. Coming back. Yes, sir.
Any New Year resolution? Any New Year resolution?
Yes. More life, more money, more blessings for everybody. Everything he just said times 10.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to do it on a stick, my dear. I think it's all a good idea. And then you give me the look, my dear. No, couple, tell them one time. Talking about the decision, I come around, come. Still, couple, my temper, one time. The one in the book, I will the one come. We're ready to never come about. I shoot, gonna. Hallelujah.
Well, it looks like a mini dance party that is going on here. Let's talk to them. Let's talk to them.
Happy New Year.
Many happy returns.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. What's 2022 like for you? Was it good?
It was good. Could have been better, but I'm optimistic about 2023 for sure. Yeah.
Definitely gonna be better.
Looking forward to it.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing too?
I'm well.
Great. What's your
Happy
name?
New Year.
Many happy returns. Many happy returns. What's your name and where are you from?
My name is Buki. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria.
Oh, Buki. Okay, nice to meet you.
And you too.
My West African sister.
Yes, my brother.
Hope you're having fun though.
I'm having a great time. It's lovely to be in Accra for New Year, for Christmas. It's lovely.
Yeah. What was 2022 like for you?
2022 was a learning curve for me, and I think it was for everyone. But we're all looking forward to 2023. Manifestation of good things, good life, great health, business, personal life, love, all of the good things. So,
and then soft life.
Soft life for sure.
So Sarkodie just finished performing here and then he's taking a rest here. Good year he's had in 2022 and 2023 promises to be better. What would you describe 2022? Was it a great year for you? You loved it?
Yeah, I loved it. At least I'm alive, so that's a good reason to love it.
2023, what should we expect? I mean, 2022 was a year a lot of people were complaining about economic hardship and all of that. You know, what are expectations for 2023? That things will get better?
Yeah, as you said, I would wish everybody, my prayer is for every human being to have the basics. I want wealth and riches to be an option, but the basics, I want every human being to be able to get that. That's my prayer. But yeah, 2023, I hope that the system will be a bit more loose so that the people can live. And we'll be outside as well. We're taking the music on tour, so we'll be announcing the date soon.
Okay, we'll be expecting that.
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it.
So we're still here at our Independence Square. We're having a great time. Here, it's 2023. All the people here are excited. I have here with me one of Ghana's bloggers and journalists, Amel Deborah. Let's talk to him. What was 2022 like for you?
Well, I think it was similar to what most people had. It was a difficult year, ups and downs. But I think we stayed focused. We were hopeful that things will improve. It sort of did. So we are looking forward to a very good 2023. Last year was difficult, so we hope and pray this year gets better.
How difficult was it? Did it affect attendance at shows this year?
Well, this year people were out, but the energy was not as high compared to the last.
You are still thinking about their pockets.
They have to.
What's 2022 like for you?
It wasn't actually easy, but with God, everything was possible. You know? The economy was actually bad, but then you have no option than just move with the economy. So,
are you hoping for a better 2023?
We are just hoping for a better economy in 2023.
It was very difficult and it was very hectic as well. You know, the economy, everything. I mean, it was very difficult. Yeah.
Okay. So are you hoping for a better year in 2023?
Definitely. I'm hoping 2023 will be better. Things are starting to look better, so I hope everything will be better.
So we're here backstage here with Ikia Kufuor, who is the creator of the Countdown Africa show. We saw some spectacular fireworks here. Sarkodie also gave a breathtaking performance. As always, Ikia Kufuor is here. Tell us, how did you pull off a very successful show like this?
With an amazing team, just believing in my vision, getting an amazing team, like I said, and hard work.
Should we expect another one?
More of this. Oh, absolutely. This is a yearly or annually, however you want to put it, an annually event. In terms of expectation, just more of what you got today.
And we say welcome to 2023. This is the first edition of The Pulse, and we're wrapping up here, but we'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com. We have updates there for you.